All right, it's time to start. I would like to wish you all a warm welcome to today's webinar. The purpose of why we're here today is to better understand the potential that we have for partnerships and collaboration between two very innovative countries, and two countries where the life science sector plays an important role. Both when it comes to research, we're both at the forefront, and life science sector is also a very important part of our societies and our economies. This event is organized by 3 different organizations. Vinnova, the Swedish innovation agency, that has actually a representative in Israel, in Tel Aviv, and that is Joanna Bokvist, who is with us in the audience today. It's the Sweden-Israel Chamber of Commerce with Jeanette Tuval here beside me that I will hand over to in a little while. And myself, my name is Maria Helling, and I represent Swika Foundation. And Swika is a semi-governmental organization. We work very closely with the Swedish Ministry of Health and Social Affairs, and we work for internationalization of the Swedish life science sector. Recently, we launched a virtual platform that I would like to invite you all to visit, and you can better understand what Sweden has to offer in this field when you have a look at it. Well, and by those words, I think we will start the real program. We have a line of interesting speakers, of course, and that will be followed by a panel discussion. We also have a possibility for the audience to comment and ask questions in our chat. We will try to include in the interest of time, and otherwise we feel that that could be a good way of following up after when we see where your interest lies. I will now hand over to Jeanette Tuval here beside me, that will guide us through the morning and the program today. Hey, please, Jeanette.
Good morning. So thank you, Maria. And as you said, this meeting is all about promoting the connection and collaboration between Sweden and Israel. And Bio-Convergence, as we soon will hear, is all about collaboration. Collaboration between disciplines, between sectors and organizations, and of course between countries. So to kick this morning off, I'll start with the program and invite our first speaker, which is Benny Schlick, Managing Director of Innovation Without Borders, that will help set the scene and tell us about how Israel has become an innovation nation, and a little bit about the synergies between Israel and Sweden. So, hi, good morning, Benny. Great to have you here.
Good morning.
Great.
Good morning. Pleasure to be here.
Great. So the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Just waiting for the presentation to pop up also, and I will start. I have this challenge of showing or presenting the Israeli ecosystem in 10 minutes, which is quite a challenge, but I'll try to make the best out of it, and then I'll finish with a little bit of inputs on the great potential between our ecosystem. My name is Benny Schlick. I'm advising governments and corporates on innovation relations, business, and basically their penetration process to the Israeli ecosystem of technology and innovation. And I'm super excited to have the opportunity of working in the last 3 years as a consultant to Vinnova office here in Tel Aviv. I'm also the founder of Innovation Without Borders and director. We established this organization in 2017. The reason why or for what is basically to work with international representatives that placed in Israel, usually diplomats, basically, that are responsible for trade and lately also innovation. The question that is being asked is basically, so we are basically their gate to the Israeli ecosystem, or their landing pad to the ecosystem. And it's interesting reason to think of why would the government start to put this kind of representatives, and because the current situation, as you know, Israel is a home of innovation, and the current situation in Israel is very vibrant. And we went from oranges to high tech. Basically, the oranges was the main power of Israel, and today is definitely the high tech, and I'll get into the details about it. As I said, current situation in Israel is super boiling. I'll just I know that some of you know this information, but I think it's important to kind of create this one line that everybody will be familiar with, a little bit with the numbers also. So everybody wants to be part of it, as I said, from the governmental side to the private sector side. And you can see it also by the numbers in the last decade, especially, where you have more and more multinational R&D centers opening their office in Israel. And you can see here some of the examples and some of the fields of the multinationals that are opening their office. And you can imagine the spillover, basically, that it creates on the ecosystem of Israel for the people and for the government. But what's important to understand is that the bottom line is that they are coming to Israel for the human capital. First of all, because it's not cheap in Israel. It's a sad news to say that Tel Aviv was announced as the most expensive city in the world. So it's definitely not because of the low prices. It's definitely not because of the benefits, but it is because of the great talent that there is in Israel. And it shows also, of course, Israel, as mentioned, is one of the top leading ecosystems of the world. This one is by the Bloomberg Innovation Index from 2021. And of course, we're sharing these great spots with the Nordics and with Sweden. And some numbers in terms of the activities, or the numbers and investments on the ecosystem of technology and startups. So we had a constant kind of growth. You can see here it's by billions on the side. So we had this constant growth until 2020, and then the COVID basically hit us. And for the surprise of all of us, and I think all of the economists and everybody, we basically boomed as crazy. And you see that this is the number of investments. So we basically doubled or tripled even almost the numbers. I don't know if it will continue, but we will see. But it's also created there was a huge hype of also creating unicorns. And this always, of course, brings more and more investors into the game. So we have crazy numbers of all the leading investors playing in Israel. And it's important also to understand that most of the investments being made in Israel, it's by foreign money. So 80% of the total investments is made by the foreign money. It's important to understand because in a way, Israel reached kind of a tipping point. When I'm saying a tipping point, it's from the perspective that Israel technology and innovation is basically the engines of growth, of economic growth of Israel. So it's beyond the niceties of talking about innovation. It's actually a solid, important process in the Israeli government, and the interest is, of course, there. And in a way, it created the situation where the startup nation is kind of becoming more and more scale-up nation. I do believe we still need to emphasize on our strength, and I'll talk about it a little bit, but basically we're shifting a little bit more to the scale-up nation, let's say. You can see here some numbers, example of sectors and the numbers, let's say, of the companies in Israel. And of course, we gather here around the health. So you can see also that the health, the digital health, as it was defined in this specific report, it's one of the leading in terms of numbers of companies active in Israel. It's not necessarily the leading one in terms of the investments being made, but this is before 2021, by the way. But this is by billions, of course, on the side. So there's a lot of great achievements in Israel. You might have some of them you know, and there's great. It's nice sometimes to kind of brag about it, but I think what's interesting is not about. It's also the numbers. But I think what's really interesting is to really understand why it's happening in Israel. And I will use my last 5 minutes of this talk to actually present you a little bit with why it's happening in Israel, and perhaps so you can actually better understand and compare it to the Swedish ecosystem side. So Israel has, it's like the facts about Israel, but it's also you can change the title into challenges, because the population is kind of no markets, similar of course to Sweden. We're in size, we're very small. In this version of the state, we're a very, very young economical island, as you know. and some other challenges that we have, but yet somehow Israel allows innovation to flourish, and basically creating this super strong and interesting, as you saw, and with great achievements ecosystem. By the way, I think it's very similar numbers also for startups in Sweden, but I think startups is defined maybe a little bit differently in our countries. But what's important to understand, and I think I'm going more to the soft side, now we had the numbers, now it's a little bit the soft side of this presentation, is to understand that we actually are not necessarily better, of course, and I will actually prove it that we are not better. It's in a way we just don't have any choice. And the necessity, in a way, is the mother of innovation, as we all know. And Shimon Peres, our former president, was also mentioning that it's not just the necessity, it's the diversity, and then the chutzpah. And I think that's a very interesting, and I'll dig into that and add to that to present. I think it's going to be interesting for you to see, in a way, what is the different ingredients of the Israeli innovation recipe, let's call it. So this is kind of the main pillars that create maybe the reason for why we are what we are. So of course the cultural, the academia, the defense, the immigration and the internationality in Israel, and the governmental support. I will emphasize, and I think one of the most relevant one, which will probably would be relevant to most of the discussion later that you will have, with which of course this is the culture. And in the culture side, I think it's interesting to see, and the way I see it and kind of combine it is the chutzpah and the tachlis way of Israelis doing things. So chutzpah, maybe you heard about this term. It's the direct translation is actually rudeness, but it's more a positive approach in the tech, of course, and innovation approach, which is kind of being stubborn to achieve your goals and getting to the point that you want to get. And the tachlis is basically to the point. So Israel is, as I will put, we're very informal. So the informality and no hierarchy. Very flexible, bypass the rules. Once you come to Israel and visit and go first ride on the road, you will understand it, that rules somehow are optional here. Also, by the way, in many cases in the military. So it's interesting to see how this combines directness and openness. You will be surprised or not surprised. You shouldn't be surprised if people in Israel will start to ask you about the kids, about your marriage, curiosity and questioning everything, including personally, but also including professionally. So the soldiers might question the commanders, or the junior might question the manager. And then failure is okay and even good. Having an experience is a great positive thing in Israel, even if it's a bad one. So investors will prefer to invest money in people who already failed and not in those who are doing it in the first time. Because they reduce their risk, because you will fail eventually, or most of the startups. And of course, only when you have the failure, you can expect the success. Networking and communication, collaboration, it's very strong. And of course, I think this is the most important one, is the self-confidence of I can do it better. And on this, I will emphasize a little bit more, and I'll give you an example. So you're probably all familiar with the PISA exams in mathematics. So so I'm giving an example here from 2012, but I'll explain why. But following my old presentation of this great achievement, you would expect that Israel would be leading the countries in terms of the knowledge this is the objective way of how smart we are in mathematics. But you will be maybe surprised to see that we actually in the very bottom of the list. And Singapore and Hong Kong, Taiwan, Korea are kind of leading, of course. Japan are leading this. Sweden, by the way, are not so far from Israel. But in this specific exams, there was additional question. In my mathematical class, I understand even the most difficult work. So the first results are the objective one. So you can see who really knows. This one is a subjective. So you can understand already where I'm going. And it's clearly that Israel actually has the most self-confidence in saying, yes, I can do it. So basically proves the point of I can do it better. What's interesting also to see is that Japan, Korea, Taiwan are the least confident. So in terms of let's say in terms of innovation and entrepreneurship, it's not necessarily what you know, it's what you do with what you know and how confident you feel and how you push it forward. And I think it's really defines the Israeli cultural way of doing business and living, by the way. Sometimes it's good for business, sometimes it's not, as I said, not so nice when you're driving the road or other things. So we talked about the culture. Of course, the academia, I will not get into that, but academia has a major player here in Israel. Of course, the defense, the ability of a young professional entering the military and having responsibilities and having in a young age, leading people, dealing really with meaningful, life-changing things. So that creates a lot of self-confidence, maybe kind of building on this additional self-confidence that we already have. And of course, the immigration and internationality. I myself, I'm an immigrant. I was born in Estonia, moved to Israel, and most of the people that we know, that you will see in Israel or meet in Israel, are either they're themselves immigrant, their parents immigrant, or the grandparents immigrant, as you can understand. And it's also not just, everybody came from Europe, that you might think. My wife, she's half Polish, half Yemen. So it's a really mixture, and this mixture is super, super relevant and super, super good for innovation, environment, and entrepreneurship. And of course, the governmental support. I won't get into that also, but the governmental support was a crucial player at the establishment of this ecosystem in the 90s, with still supporting. We have, similar to Vinnova, supporting the most risky kind of startups and ventures and researchers to promote it and give it a boost so that the private sector will be more comfortable to jump into that. By the way, if anybody wants to follow up and hear more, I'll be more than happy to discuss it. That's basically the different elements that creates the environment. And of course, there's a lot of organizations in Israel that are trying to support it all together and create the best environment for the startups, later scale-ups / companies to succeed. So that's the Israeli side. And just finishing my last minutes with the Israeli and Swedish kind of perspective. And I think, as I mentioned, Israel and Sweden ranked both leading global players in innovation, but we have it from a very different, or at least maybe not very, but different reasons. And I think the biggest challenge, and I think this is, I'm really excited about it. I think it's really important, this kind of webinar, because it's really answering the biggest challenge that we have, is that misunderstanding of the potential between the sides. And the potential between the sides goes in few ways. So global competition, lack of knowledge. Israelis is probably a bit like Swedish. We don't look at Israel as a market, so we automatically look abroad. Looking abroad, meaning looking at mainly US as a main market. Nobody looks at Sweden because they see Sweden as the same number of population, so it's not an interesting market. We don't understand, and we don't know that Sweden is basically a home base for so many corporates and potential collaborations, and vice versa to the Swedish side about Israeli companies. And in a way, maybe now we're answering this challenge, but no accessibility, no easy access to the Swedish-Israeli market, or beyond the knowledge is also the access. So I think the great work of Vinnova here in Israel and the great work of the chamber and creating the better collaboration, I think it's really the way to create a better connection and streamline between the sides. So there is some activities, current situation in Israel, and some activities of companies working in Israel in R&D. I never mentioned here, for example, IKEA, because it's not about innovation. They're just selling here, or H&M, they're just selling here. So it's not about the innovation side. It's about the business. But here we're talking about the innovation, the R&D side. And yet all these companies kind of present, but it's really just the tip of the iceberg. And Sweden and Israel, in a way, complete each other. And that's, I think, the biggest opportunity. And I give 3 examples, and then I'll finish my presentation. I'll give first example regarding the Israeli, as you already understood, approach. We're really good in creating solutions with a short-term approach, with an agile startup ecosystem, short-term thinking. And then the Swedish side, in a way, it's almost complementary side to grow and develop the product or the solution that we're having, with a long-term approach, thinking, strong global industries that we absolutely don't have, of course, in Israel. So in a way, that's a clear complementary side of collaboration that is existing and yet to be really tapped into. The second example, of course, is the Israeli startups. So Israeli startups has two main goals. One is funding, which you saw that is quite well in Israel. So maybe that's not the need. But finding best POCs with global corporates, that's something that Israeli companies, every startup is looking for. And in a way, on the other side, we have the Swedish side, basically looking for best solution to solve their challenges as a POC. So that's a clear match that can be created and connected. And of course, beyond that, the third example, of course, is the academia collaboration, it's startup to startups and more. So without trying to be on time, I think the process, and I'm really excited about what we're having here today, the process is actually to connect the dots and create the value similar to what we're trying and doing in this great webinar. And from my side, I hope I was on time, and I hope I was able to give you the most relevant information for you to kick off this important discussion. So back to the studio. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you, Benny. That was perfect and right on time. So thank you for that. And thank you for this great introduction. And it's really, really interesting that even though, as you said, we have such different ingredients in our innovation recipes between Israel and Sweden, we are both very successful in just that innovation and in the life science sector. And these synergies will follow us throughout this morning in our discussion here. And also another reason, as you mentioned, for Israel being such a successful innovation nation is a lot thanks to the government and the government investment in this area. And now with that, I'm inviting Professor Rivka Karmi, that will that is president of founder president of the Israel Academy of Science and Medicine and chairwoman of the Committee of Bio-Convergence in the Council of National Research Infrastructures. And you will share with us the committee's work in advising for the government why and how they should invest in bioconvergence as the next emerging focus area. So thank you for being here and welcome.
Well, thank you very much, Janet, for having me. This is really very exciting, and building on the previous presentation, I think there are also a lot to do together. And the more I think about bioconvergence, the more I'm convinced that there is a place for collaboration. So in my background, I'm a medical doctor in training, pediatrician and ontologist, and my research field is medical genetics. I used to be the dean of a medical school at Ben-Gurion University of the Negev, and for the past 13 years, until 3 years ago, I was the president of Ben-Gurion University. And I'm very much involved in the area of biomedical research and investment. And I had the honor of chairing this committee that I'm going to tell you a little bit about. So I'm going to talk about bioconvergence. And bioconvergence, the term was coined for the convergence of life sciences, and obviously life sciences includes biomedical research as well, with computation and engineering. And it is considered not only in Israel, but now worldwide, as the rising technology wave of the 21st century. Actually, the tipping point of bioconvergence occurred somewhere the second decade of the 21st century, bringing together the huge, vast developments in two technological areas. One, software and engineering, talking about artificial intelligence, machine learning, dealing with big data, computing, and obviously material sciences, bringing engineering into the picture. And as we all know, the genetic revolution, genetic therapy, digitization of biological data, biological drugs, chemical drugs, all of that were developed at the end of the previous century and came into fruition and showed its potential very robustly very recently. So next slide shows the report of McKinsey study. Next slide, please. In 2020, estimating the global economical impact of bioconvergence at around $4 trillion a year over the next 10 to 20 years. It talks a lot about health and medicine. Obviously, this is going to be something very central in bioconvergence, but not only. And I have to emphasize the fact that it really affects almost all areas of life, say energy, consumer products, agriculture, both food tech and aquaculture, materials, new materials, and very obviously defense as well. So following the report by McKinsey, or beforehand, let me give you some examples. So for us to try to grab the scope of bioconvergence and what we are referring to when we are terming this, we are coining this term. I'm not going to really go into details, and you can have the presentation later on, just to realize the various options and also the fact that there are already companies, startups in various stages and of activities, both in Israel and abroad, dealing in those very futuristic kind of endeavors. So we're talking about Optogenetics Therapeutics, and this is genetic modifications and light stimuli, and it precisely manipulates cells behavior by turning them on and off, and looking into certain genes in specific cells. And you know, for most of them, the sky is the limit in actually the potential, not overnight, but for the future. Bioelectronics medicine, miniaturizing implantable systems in the human body, engineered living and smart materials. Next slide shows therapeutics discoveries. In fact, the whole drug discovery field is going to be very significantly and impressively changed, because drug screening is going to be and it is already there, much easier and less costly. Bioengineered nanorobotics, already in action, but not very commercially yet, whereby programmed biovehicles or devices are carrying either specific tasks or drugs directly into specific organs. Therapeutics genetic engineering, we heard about it a lot, about gene editing, various technologies that just getting improved on a daily basis, genetic editing of genes, 3D printing and cyborg tissue engineering, actually biofabrication, creating of tissues out of newly discovered materials. And as you can see, every aspect of bioconvergence here is already depicted by startups in various stages. Next slide, please. You know, this is mostly about my way of predicting and feeling, because I think that bioconvergence is really going to transform healthcare and medicine. I brought here two examples, one of chronic diseases. So the whole idea of early detection, of diagnosis and prognosis, of treatment decisions, and of precise treatment. I mean, really looking into data of an individual patient and tailor-made the treatment for high blood pressure, diabetes, etc. And again, you can see the various companies that are already dealing with this kind of activities. The next example to me is cancer convergence. I think cancer convergence is something which is really very advancing already. So again, decision making about therapeutics, identify of new markers, which is very, very important for early detection, advanced drug delivery by all methods that I mentioned before, and customized organ chips that again going to be very instrumental in tailor-making therapy to specific kind of cancers that were diagnosed in a specific patients individually. Next slide again shows that indeed medicine is the centerpiece. A lot of advances in bioconvergence are already being depicted in medicine and health. However, it is very, very vast. I mean, the potential now after finishing our work that I'm going to describe in a moment, I'm absolutely convinced that the fields that are going to be significantly impacted by bioconvergence are very, very wide. Next slide, please. So in 2017, the Israeli Innovation Authority embarked on a study, both locally and globally, about finding the next economic growth engine for Israel, anticipating that high-tech is going, maybe not in the very short term, but going to some kind of a plateau, and that we have to think about something new to really robust the achievements of high-tech in Israel and introduce into it what became the term bioconvergence, meaning health, life sciences, and biomedical research. So they came up with a very detailed and report, again based on information from Israel, but also from the world. And they have presented this report to Telem. Next slide, please. Telem is the National Infrastructure Forum for Research and Development, and let me just dwell a little bit about it because it is very important to understand this body. This is a voluntary organization that was established in the late 1970s, in late 90s, with the idea to promote R&D programs and projects in scientific and technological fields through first establishing national R&D infrastructure and then fostering collaboration, both interorganizational, interdepartmental, but also international. So international collaboration is something very central to the mandate of the Telem Forum. And it's very important also to note the members of Telem for the sake of, trying to get some inspiration on how to do things. So we have there the Israel National Academy of Science, Ministry of Innovation, Science and Technology, the Council of Higher Education, which is the regulator of all universities in Israel, Israel Innovation Authority, Ministry of Finance, and this is, a very, very kind of critical issue or point in this forum, and the Directorate of Defense Rnd, DD-R&D, which is the counterpart of the more known American DARPA, with the idea that there is a lot that defense can gain from bioconvergence, but also thinking about repurposing of various defense kind of technologies for the civil market. So in December of 2020, the Telem Forum has decided to establish this committee that I had the honor to chair. The committee members represented all the four silos that you can see here: academia, defense, industry, medicine, and health. Although there is no representative of medicine in the Telem Forum, I thought that since medicine and health is very central to bioconvergence, they should be there as well. So all of them were very senior people in Israel, very known ones, and ones that have an experience in this kind of collaboration and bringing together life sciences and engineering. The work were done within silos, but also we made a point that the work will be done very convergently among those groups as well. So we worked for more than a year, very intensely. Most of our meetings were done on Zoom, obviously, because of the Corona situation. We had a lot of roundtables discussions with all stakeholders that you can think of. We had surveys done in the academia, in the industry, both in Israel and abroad. We had a lot of consultation with senior people in the various silos, again, in Israel and out of Israel. And we came up with a report. Now, I have to just pause for a little bit and tell you that the mandate of our committee was actually to study the need for the government to intervene in order to promote bioconvergence in Israel as an engine of growth. And therefore, we had to actually find the market failures that prevent the private sector from investing itself in the field and just, make it growth without the intervention of the government. Because every government, and I think specifically in Israel, have this notion that, if something can be done by the private sector, don't touch it. Not only because, don't want to invest money, because they have this idea that whatever the private sector is moving forward can be more efficient and long-lasting. So we actually had to convince the government, namely the Ministry of Finance, that there are some barriers that unless the government will intervene to address, it will not happen. And by the way, that was something very new to the Telem Forum, because in previous years, what they have done is actually recommending infrastructures on various issues, mainly research, but also a little bit of development. But it was never considered as a quest to create an economical growth engine. So in that regard, it was really very different. And by the way, that was the reason I accepted the leading of this committee, because I really believe that we need to see what can be done, the application of the various research, good research being done in academia. So this is in Hebrew. I don't expect you to read in Hebrew. This is the 4 recommendations based on the 4 market failures that we have identified that actually necessitate the intervention of the government. For each recommendation, we had a list of activities that we recommended, and also, and this is on the left side of the table here, who will be the leader, the Telem partner, the partner in the forum that will be responsible for the implication. It doesn't mean that this partner will solely be responsible for the implementation, but he or she will need to lead the process. So now that I blocked the Hebrew one, I'll give you the English translation. So the first one was building interdisciplinary R&D infrastructure, and this means mainly in the industry, promoting excellence in interdisciplinary research and developing interdisciplinary manpower, mainly in the academia. When I say mainly, I say not only, but mainly in academia. Funding of interdisciplinary R&D, which was found as a real barrier because of the complexity of the field, because of the fact that we are talking between sectors that are very different, culture-wise, mission-wise, And it is, and also there are no real very impressive success story as of yet. There are no unicorns, and although there are some very important startups that are already commercializing, the private sector is still very hesitant and reluctant to really invest definitely in the early stages of those startups. So we thought that the government should chip in here, top down very significantly. And the fifth one is about regulation. Innovative, enabling regulation, realizing that the regulation that we have right now, whether in the Ministry of Health, but also in other ministries that can be relevant for bioconvergence, are still very traditional and cumbersome. And we have to really create something new. We do have an idea about how to go about it. And the only consolation is that it is not only Israel that struggle with this issue of regulation. It is worldwide. Even the FDA doesn't really know how to tackle this kind of new futuristic medicine. I personally have this fantasy that maybe at least will become a regulation hub for bioconvergence, which is really specific and very complex. And let me say a few words about the multidisciplinary R&D infrastructure, which in fact has the majority or a very good big chunk of the budget that we were suggesting. So we were talking about a model of two arms integrated with each other. One arm is infrastructure R&D companies in the industry, and the other one is infrastructure for research in hospitals or academia. And the idea is for them to have formalized relationship, not only a matter of whether they want or not, as something in a contract, and advantage to physical proximity, which is not actually, it will give them some points when the call for proposals come, but it's not really a barrier. So for that, the committee has established a list of focus areas of focus in bioconvergence. Knowing bioconvergence is fairly wide. So based on some research, whether on how extensive is the research in each field in Israel, how much we are in a competitive edge in the world in this kind of research, and also how close is the research to commercialization and economical implementation. So we have identified 6 such focus areas: bioengineering devices, environmental microbiome, metabolomics, synthetic biology, biological printing, theranostics, and precision medicine. And the idea is to come up with call for proposals, either for the academia or hospitals, or combined, obviously, for them to establish those research infrastructure that will cater to their research need, also for some collaboration with the industry, but at the very, very early stages of the project. So I would say pre-seed kind of collaboration with the industry. On the other hand, for the infrastructures R&D by the industry, we have suggested, our recommendations is to really top down do call for proposals on 3 R&D centers, again build on what we understood through our work of the committee that is really needed in order to boost the field in Israel, make sure that we retain those wonderful brains and ideas in Israel and not lose them to other countries because we don't have the appropriate infrastructure to really, prove concepts and to do small series, not necessarily production, but at least small or medium series that can get, you know, to the next stage. So in those cases, we have emphasized bioengineering devices, biological printing, tissues and food, medicine and food tech, and theranostics and precision medicine. Theranostics mean both diagnostics and therapeutics, and precision medicine. So apparently there is some overlap between the infrastructure in academia and hospitals and in the industry, but it is only seemingly, because they are different, their mission is different, the goals are different, what they are going to do is entirely different, but there are definitely synergy. They can work together, and whatever is being achieved on this arm of academia and hospitals can be now further go back to the industry in order to bringing to fruition the ideas that were created in academia, bringing them to the industry. So last month in May, and I'm just about to finish, Janet. And this is a quote from the Israeli Globe. The state will invest 1 billion shekels, which is around $400 million. For bioconvergence, and I can tell you that it will be probably higher, because the Israeli innovation authorities have already invested, and they have their own projects in bioconvergence by them. So I anticipate the beginning of the implementation of our recommendation at the end of the year, maybe beginning of next year, but in between, or in the meanwhile, the Israeli Innovation Authority has already done a lot. They've already invested close to 200 million new shekels. Two examples are the establishment of the first synthetic biology infrastructure company in Israel. So this is an industrial company that work in the field of synthetic biology, something very central to bioconvergence. And the other one is an example of very wide international collaboration. This is the creation of the ION Labs, which resides next to Weizmann Institute. And this is a collaboration of Pfizer, AstraZeneca, Merck, and Teva. And together they are going to create these IA technologies and computational science to solve therapeutic challenges. So it is really biology and pharmacology and pharma teaming up with the new world of AI and computation. So this is it, and thank you very much for being attentive. And again, I will gladly share the presentation with you, so you can really delve into it and find more ideas for the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rivka. Very, very impressive. And as you said, such a great potential lies ahead. And now we have to take it from strategy to action. So very, very impressive and interesting to see how it will evolve ahead of us. And one example that we have on a couple of companies already taking the step of putting it to action, combining both disciplines and cultures, are Symbionics and Surgical Science, an Israeli company and a Swedish company. And now I'm happy to invite Ran Bronstein. Hi, Ran. Great to have you here.
How are you?
And to hear a little bit a bit more about the journey that you've been taking in your ride to combine the different companies and collaborate together. So please.
First of all, it's great to be here, be part of that of this webinar and the collaboration that shows the collaboration between Sweden and Israel. Actually, as you said, we are an example to such collaboration, and it also connects to what was discussed before, because we are also, Symbionics was also a company that was created and supported by the Israeli Innovation Authority. So many points that were discussed are part of what we are and what we do. This is not the first slide. Can you move to the first slide? Something went wrong here. Maybe I... Oops, okay. No, let me check. Let me see. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yes. So first of all, so who we are? My name is Ran Bronston. I'm the co-founder of Symbionics, which was founded in 1997. And who we are today? We are a Swedish company called Surgical Science that was founded in Gothenburg, Sweden, and it's pioneer of in medical and VR training industry. It's a company that is globally established and sells in all continents, and also working with different OEM and medical device company to deploy medical simulator as an important tool in training physician and training physician with new technologies. It is listed in the Nasdaq Stockholm First North Growth Market, so we are a public company. And here is where Surgical Science really, as a Swedish company, did a real good thing to our industry of medical simulation. A consolidation process started in 2019. They acquired Sense Graphic, another Swedish company specialized in software from Stockholm. Then they acquired Mimic Technologies, which is an American-based company dealing with robotic surgery simulation. And in 2021, just a year ago, our journey began. And everything that I will say, you can ask later on my partner Gisli in the panel to make sure that we're speaking the same language now. And they acquired Symbionics in 2021. Symbionics, next slide, please. Oh no, okay. Again, I guess something went wrong with the presentation, but anyway, Symbionics was founded in 1997. Symbionics is a market leader and was a market leader in medical simulation, actually in a way the market leader, and also was presented in many continents, many different countries, and was a successful company that was acquired by 3D Systems, an American company, in 2014. With over several thousands, 5,000 simulators already over the world, medical simulators, so we were an established company, sold to the American company, and then in 2021, as a result of a process in which both Surgical Science, the team at Symbionics and 3D System identified an opportunity of which we can leverage the value of the Symbionics team within the Surgical Science team. We were purchased by Surgical Science. And it was a great opportunity to combine both technologies, passion, and goals in terms of deploying medical simulators within the world. The two companies had a lot of similarities in the way they act in the market, in the way they develop their innovative technology, and in the way they even treated the teams and the people within the organizations. So also there are differences between Sweden and Israel mentality and culture. From the first stage, I think that it was a real success, and so far so good. I'll take 1 minute to explain why is medical simulation is required. So medical simulators, physician can train on many different modalities. They can train with just simple, let's call it web-based application. They can train with cadavers. They can train in our training with animals or with patients themselves. Training and improving skills is very important because they are dealing with life and death situation. So medical simulators that were presented at the late 19 and by Symbionics, Surgical Science, and other company created a different and additional way for physicians to be trained to improve their skills, a way that saves the use of animal cadavers and even sometimes patients. And what is a medical simulator? Next slide, please. Just to explain what is a medical simulator. So a medical simulator is a machine, tool, that store the digital anatomy of a human person, a human being. The physician, the surgeon, is doing the operation like in real life. He's touching the real tools, he's cutting, he's moving organs, especially the focus is on minimally invasive therapy surgery. And the simulator knows to track and to measure the physician hands and operation and to compute the result and to show the physician the result on the screen and also to create forces so the physician feels what he do. You can compare it to a pilot, to a flight simulator. There is a difference. The airplanes were created by the human beings, and we, as you know, we were not created by ourselves. We don't have user manual. We don't have technical specification of our body, and each one of us is different and was created different with different anatomy and different characteristics. So to simulate the human body in a way that physician can really train and feel they are in, it's a very challenging technological task that requires a lot of innovation, different technology, talking about bioconvergence, converging technologies from electronic, mechanical, software, materials, everything together to create this sophisticated machine that physician will say, this is real, I can train with it. And by the way, it's not just a technological gap or challenge, it's also knowledge transfer, because one of the secret sauce of both companies and today's surgical science is the ability to transfer the knowledge from the physicians, from the healthcare community to the simulators. It's a process which is not less demanding and important than technology itself. So the collaboration with the healthcare community and the partnership with the healthcare community, it was important in both companies and enabled us to work together very good from the beginning. Because in both company, partnership, collaboration is part of the culture. And now I'll get back to some trivial things, but how we did it. So please move to the next slide. The first thing that we did actually was get to know each other. It was very strange. We couldn't meet in any place because of the corona, and Gisli suggested, we actually decided that Gisli suggested to meet in Dubai. So the first meeting was at Dubai, and we started to build trust. Trust, I think it's important in business life, important between people, in families, but in such a process, trust was very important. So we built the trust between each one of us and also between our teams. And building the trust was also to identify different differences, commonalities in cultures, in operation, in values. So trying to map the differences and the good things about both culture. We establish common and short long-term goals, and we build the org chart together. We started to mix teams, visits between the sites, and all of that created the energy to impact our virtual reality market even stronger. So we're enjoying a lot of success in our market these days, and hopefully, and we have a lot of work to continue that. It's a journey that each one of us started alone, but today we are together, a Swedish company with a very important center, R&D, but not just R&D. In Israel, we also deal with international sales and marketing. So it's not a typical R&D center. It's just a real collaboration between two very innovative companies and ability to work together. Next slide, please. Okay. It is not the presentation, but we're Israelis, so we can improvise, and we're also Swedish. We'll do it in very arranged manner. So things we learned along these dialogue is about some differences between the cultures, things that has to do with consensus and hierarchy. The difference between taking a decision in a consensus way or in a hierarchical way. Sometimes the ability to be conclusive in discussions, so meaning to the decision-making process and the conclusiveness of this decision, how we make decision and when a decision was made. It was very funny sometimes to see the two different culture, how they take decision and the way, so we learn how to work together and to make it to one process. Also things about being proactive or being passive. And this is without saying what's good and what's wrong. It's just sometimes differences that you need to create bridges. It's a cultural bridge, it's operational bridge, and and if you are aware of that from the beginning, and you're trying to close the gap as fast as possible, then you can be successful. And as Janet said in the beginning, it's about the real life and being successful as a company and multinational company. And I think we are doing a good job so far, the two companies, and hopefully it will take us to the future, entering into robotic simulation and other fields that are strive for medical simulation, including synthetic data, AI, and the future of simulation in the healthcare community and in the healthcare world. So thank you very much for being part of that, showing you how we can do it mostly right. Let's say it that way.
Thank you very much, Ran. That was great. And as I said, in the end, it's all about people, leadership, culture, and improvising when needed. So that was great, and thanks for that. And as we want more success stories such as yours with symbiotics and surgical sciences, we need environments to promote that and enable connecting and setting the ground for collaboration. And to talk about such an environment, I now invite Magnus Bjorschner from AstraZeneca, CEO at AstraZeneca's BioVenture Hub, to tell us about such an environment. So hi, Magnus. Thanks.
Hi, and good morning, everyone. Hi, Jeanette. I have been with the cold for a couple of days, so sorry if my voice is a bit manly today. So my name is Magnus Bjorschner. I'm heading up the AstraZeneca BioVenture Hub located in Gothenburg, Sweden. I'm a scientist by background and by accident went into economics, and then I became an associate professor in innovation. So today, I guess I'm jack of no trades at all. Sweden is unique in the sense that we have a long history of presence of large pharma. And if we look into R&D, I think, as is the case with Israel, we are very strong in the R domain. But if you look on the small companies, they very often lack the development expertise. And this is where big pharma can support growth in the sector. If we combine that fact with the fact that there is a resistance among large corporations to engage in truly disruptive technology, there is a resistance to explore. it's still too novel, it's too uncertain. So what can we do about that? And that's where the initiative BioVenture comes into play. And to give you just a short context to why we have done this, our industry is basically going from sick care to healthcare, which means that the entire definition of innovation is about to change. The way we need to conduct clinical trials, the way we need to integrate ICT with tech, with what we do, opens up total new avenues for both innovation and business, and eventually also entire business models. If we look on how we manage innovation, and I think pharma and healthcare is unique in a sense that we are pushed by technology, but at the same time, we are pulled by both patients and payers. And this is the Moore's law. It's originally developed in the 60s to describe the speed by which technology evolves. Today, you can also argue that it is what is pushing all industries. And if this is what drives us, we need to ask ourselves how we manage innovation. And there has been some innovations in this area as well, but they are less and they are not as often happening. We have the spinning jennies, we have the conveyor belt, we have Toyota's lean manufacturing, and today everybody talks about agile management. If we look into large organizations and the way we manage them, management is often derived out of the capacity to manage productivity and systems. And this type of management is very different from what is needed when it comes to innovation, because this is all about orchestrating creativity and innovation, which is very different from optimizing processes. So we asked ourselves, how can we complement the way we lead processes with the way we need to lead innovation? And that moves us to the challenge. If you look at this picture and presented it 15 years ago, people would think you were close to insane. We need to ask ourselves, what is the equivalent of this in life sciences? What would it look like? And we all know that it will be different. The problem is that the areas we need to explore are much, much wider than we are used to. So this led us to, back in 2015, we created what today is known as AstraZeneca BioVenture Hub. This is a private-public partnership between AstraZeneca in Sweden and the Swedish government. And the idea was basically to ask ourselves, could we implement a model that utilizes economics of scale in a large pharma company, combine that with the flexibility of our own resource utilization, and as such make human capital and infrastructure available to SMEs. We wanted to focus on scale-up companies and not startups. Sweden has tons of startups, but we have very few unicorns in the life science sector. And we realized that once a company moves from the R domain into the D domain, they need very different type of domain expertise. And this type of expertise often resides within the large corporations. So if we could find a way to make this competence available, we believe we will contribute to strengthen the sector as a whole, and at the same time allow AstraZeneca to explore new technology in a very different way. Today, the BioVenture Hub has been recognized as one of the most novel incubators in the world, and I will now explain to you what we did. So the whole idea was to combine 4 different industry verticals, and we don't call it bioconvergence, we call it sector convergence, but it is basically exactly the same as we discussed today. So we wanted to merge these 4 industry sectors into an environment which is driven by networks, experimentation, and transparency. It is to a large extent built on, I would say, the Nordic collaboration culture. Sometimes people claim we are a bit naive, and we have tried to use that as a benefit in this environment. we also wanted to take competition out of the equation. So the ecosystem is composed of companies that do not compete on a product level, but where they all are complementary when it comes to technology or competence. The way it is set up is also quite unique. It's totally integrated into our R&D unit in Gothenburg, Sweden. This is one of 4 global R&D units in AstraZeneca. It is in the vicinity of 3,000 AZ people, going all the way from idea conception to start of commercial production. And the model is basically the sharing economy applied to industry. These companies, and we have brought in close to 50 companies since we started this, they have the same access to the whole R&D site as I have as an AZ employee. AstraZeneca has no rights into this. It's all built on trust and the relations we build. And in essence, what we have tried to do is to take the monetary part out of the aspect of evaluating what to do. When we build business cases, and it is not unique to AstraZeneca, it's valid for all of us, at some point we try to estimate return on investment. And this means that we have actually anticipated the result of the collaboration even before we initiate it. In other words, we say no to everything we don't understand. And I don't think this is a good methodology if we want to be leading when it comes to disruptive science. So we wanted to create an environment where decision-making is driven by scientific curiosity rather than monetary expectations. If science flourish, the monetary component will come automatically. So this environment today holds companies from the US, UK, Switzerland, Holland, and of course Sweden. And I think based on the interactions we have had with Israel, I think this could be a fantastic complement to the great R expertise that sits within Israel. If we look upon the way it works, these companies, we provide them access to the infrastructure of AstraZeneca. It's even about allowing them to use our permits. We share human capital and knowledge, and it is basically cost neutral to AstraZeneca. That's how we have used the governmental funding. So it's a cost neutral exercise, actually somewhat outside the current strategy of AstraZeneca. It is all about looking into the science of tomorrow and how to prepare us with respect to where we need to be, not maybe tomorrow, but even the day after tomorrow. Since it is about sector convergence, we have moved to some very important partnerships. So we have IBM and Mölnlycke Healthcare as partners, which means that the small companies in this environment can access the competence from 3 different industry verticals. So IBM provide them access to the whole toolkit of IBM. Mölnlycke, which is a tech company, give them access to their expertise, and we provide the pharma domain expertise. We are also connected to a great sustainability initiative where we allow these companies to piggyback on what we are doing with respect to sustainability. This is an area which is becoming critical not only for the environment but also for the small companies, because both large corporations and investors put an increasing importance to this aspect. And if we can contribute to make these companies aware of this, we think we help them a lot. When it comes to the culture, we talk about dare to share. If you take competition out of the equation, you can afford to be very open with what you know and what you do and even your problems. And this is really what drives the success of this ecosystem. And if we look on success, we have worked with the School of Economics to assess to what extent this mentality towards collaboration have had an impact on growth. And the results have been stunning. These companies have been able to really show a great economic growth and growth in general. And if we look forward, BioVenture Hub is part of a global network of hubs in AstraZeneca. And one very important such hub is Beyond Bio in Tel Aviv. And we are currently in a progress of thinking how we can really strengthen the relationships between what we do in Sweden and what we are doing in Israel. It is also a means to connect the small companies to the whole AstraZeneca network of commercial capacity. So, for example, we have a link to China where we can help companies to reach that market. And as we all know, both Sweden and Israel, we are not in our respectively countries for the market's sake. It's very small markets, but it's great nations for innovation and the growth and development of companies. So with that, I think my concluding remarks here would be that we are very good at focusing on what to do. We need to pay much more attention to how we do things, because it is the implementation part that often is the problematic part. We are all super educated, but if you look on to what extent we use our experience to experiment with how we do things, there I think we have a lot to learn, and this is an example of that. We still treat this as a huge experiment in business development, basically. I often get asked, what would you have done differently? And I say nothing, because we have changed our minds 300 times already. So dare to explore and dare to share, and I think we can progress jointly in a much better way. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Magnus. And thank you to all the speakers for interesting and inspiring presentations today so far. And I think, Magnus, you said a keyword, which is implementation. And as myself, I am working with innovation within healthcare, now at Karolinska University Hospital, and prior to that at Sheba Medical Center in Israel. I really think that everything that we've talked about today is crucial and a key factor for the healthcare system to be able to face all the great challenges that we have. And for doing that, we really need to take all the great breakthroughs within research and technological development and implement it and put it into the clinical setting. So I really believe that that's what we do on a daily basis, and that's what we need to do even more as we go ahead. So now to open up for a short dialogue, I'm happy to invite Alexandra Patrickson, Gisli Hennemark, and Jakob Kuruvilla, which are part of our panel. So please, let's just start by a short introductory round. So if you could please tell us a little bit about who you are and the organizations that you're representing. So Alexandra, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Jeanette, and thank you for inviting Scilife Lab and me to be presenting here. So my name is Alexandra Patrickson, and I'm an external relations officer at Scilife Lab. And Scilife Lab is a Swedish national center for life science research and infrastructure. That means that we are currently having about 200 research groups that are associated to this organization, this center. And we are offering research services from more than 40 different technologies and expertise. And this infrastructure is available to all Swedish researchers all over Sweden, and also to industry and healthcare and hospitals. And Scilife Lab was established in 2010 from the three Stockholm-based universities, KTH, KI, and Stockholm University, together with Uppsala University. And today it's a more of a national organization covering most of the universities in all Sweden. And we are funded directly from the government, the Swedish government.
Thank you. So, Gisli?
Yes. Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much. It's been extremely interesting to listen to all these speakers and all the knowledge and experience that are currently on this call. My name is Gisli Hennemark. I am the CEO of Surgical Science and have had the great pleasure to work with a lot of Israeli colleagues over the last year. We are today a 230 people company, and we're the leader in virtual reality simulation for technical skills of physicians. And you heard a little bit from Rani Bronstein, a colleague in surgical science just earlier. And we actually today, we're a Swedish company, but our largest office in terms of team members is in Tel Aviv. So hopefully we can come back to discuss a bit more on those topics and the collaboration and the similarities, because there are more similarities than differences, but there are some differences as well in cultures, which we have experienced together. So thank you very much for having me on this call.
Thank you. And Jacob.
Yes, good morning, everyone. It has been a pleasure being part of this talk. And so my name is Jacob Kuruvilla, and I'm the Director of Sales and Applications in BICO. So BICO, it actually stands for Bio-Convergence. And this was a group founded as Selling in 2016 who actually began commercializing bio-wings and bioprinters for culturing different types of cells to enable applications like patient-derived implants. So fast forward to 2022, BICO Group consists of 15 subsidiaries with a vision to create the future of health. So now we develop platforms, workflows, and market products with a focus on various application areas ranging from bioprinting, multi-omics, liquid handling, cell line development, and diagnostics. So, with bioconvergence, we try to converge, different fields like what was discussed in the earlier talks, like for example, engineering, biotech, life sciences, artificial intelligence, multi-omics, and even robotics to basically transform research and diagnostics for the future of better health.
Thanks. Great. So Jacob, so you're doing bioconvergence. So how does your process look like when you combine different companies or disciplines in order to solve a problem? How does it work? How do you make it work?
Absolutely, I think that's a very, very valid question. I think it all depends on our focus, because as I said before, we are a group with more than with 15 subsidiaries, right? So our focus has to be aligned a lot in terms of what needs to be developed and what needs to be provided. So our focus has always been the future of healthcare, a future that basically promises kind of specialized treatment, cures for diseases, trying to understand or to bring in animal-free testing, and of course a hope for more accessible healthcare. So when these kinds of vision is aligned with all our subsidiaries, we can bring in bioconvergence, and all of these 15 subsidiaries under BICO is experts in their own fields. So basically, we bring all these teams together to create convergence of different technologies, providing our customers with the best of technology.
Thank you. And Alexandra, you're our academia representative today. So what are the focus areas that Scilife Lab has today, and how do you see your role in this ecosystem that we've been discussing this morning?
Well, I would say that bioconvergence is really a focus area for Scilife Lab and the Swedish research community as well. So Scilife Lab has this three-part role with having the large research community, the large infrastructure, and in addition to that, we are a heavy data producer. And we are striving, of course, to make even more use of this data and not letting data be an end product, but also a starting point for new kind of research and new kinds of developments. And we also, the aim is also to combine the different parts of the infrastructure even better into certain areas like precision medicine, that making use of various technologies and combine the data and the results they can produce and transfer that to the hospitals and let the clinical data also be combined and use it for clinical purposes. So there is a close collaboration and connection with the hospitals and the healthcare in Sweden and Scilife Lab, and the infrastructure sort of serves as a glue in between these organizations. Of course, there are some challenges currently in terms of legislation and secondary use of data and so, but these are the things we are trying to do. And a third thing is, so Scilife Lab has also received a large amount of funding through the Knut and Alice Wallenberg Foundation. So we are currently managing a 12 years program focusing on data-driven life sciences. And the purpose of this program is both to train the next generation of researchers and the talents that is needed to drive the focus area like bioconvergence, to combine the data sciences and the life sciences and train these researchers that we need for the future, and also to bring up new research areas and ideas for further development.
Thank you. So Gisli, about when we talk about implementing a product into the healthcare system, as you've done that journey, what would you say are the success factors? Because both Rivka talked a little bit about the challenges, and we know also by Alexandra that we do have a lot of challenges, but what would you say are the success factors for making it work in the implementation itself?
I think, first of all, there are big similarities between Sweden and Israel. If you look at the depth of knowledge and the respect for knowledge and facts that comes from academia and great academic institutions, combined with a curiosity to innovate, and also perseverance when you have something to bring it out to the market, because we both come from relatively small markets and we need to go abroad in order to commercialize. So I think it's the customer focus of bringing something to the customer and make it work. And when you're coming from smaller countries, that means you need to go to larger markets. So there are a lot of similarities there. So I think Swedish businesses and Israeli businesses have a lot both to learn from each other, but great potential to collaborate, or as in the case with Symbionics and Surgical Science, join forces and become a larger and stronger force together.
Great. So just our time is starting to run out, but so just to end on a really positive note, I would ask you to just say what the greatest potential that you see within bioconvergence now. I will just take a quick round, starting with Jacob, and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah, I mean, I believe the way or the path for future is definitely bioconvergence. And when it comes to Sweden and Israel, both of us are kind of in the first 10 countries that is that ranks. I mean, I believe we already saw the Bloomberg Innovation Index, where we saw that we are heading startups in various areas of science, including bioprinting, synthetic biology, etc., especially, and even alternative food, which is kind of very, very new. So I mean, for this, the only or the way to go forward is definitely collaboration, and to bring in academics, the industry, pharmaceutical industry, and even others in a same platform, so that we can come up with the best solutions forward.
Great. Alexandra?
I fully agree that bioconvergence is the way everything is going. I mean, life science is not what it used to be. It's not only being in the lab and doing experimentals. We need to combine it with data sciences and AI and machine learning and other kind of technologies. And I also think that adding also the social sciences as representing academia, we need to think about those sciences into this bioconvergence as well, because we meet challenges and questions that we haven't really met before within life sciences, and they need to be handled also by the social sciences. So I'm sure it's the future, and we have to go in this direction.
Gisli, that's talking a little bit about the culture, the social sciences, and that aspect.
Yeah, absolutely. But let me just comment on the bioconvergence and mute your mics so you don't laugh now. But I actually had to Google the other day, what is bioconvergence? So I learned a lot here today. But when I Googled it and tried to understand myself, what does bioconvergence mean? I realized that it's actually a lot what surgical science has been working with for years. I mean, we do computerized models of the human body for physicians to do their training. And I really think if you look at the success of bioconvergence, it's research and it's advancing knowledge, etc., but it's also putting it to use in real concrete applications that has a value for the users. So that to me is the answer to the first question. If you look at some of the cultural differences, I think it's a lot about learning and getting to know the cultures. And like my friend and colleague Rani was talking about, I think the core of it is a lot about the decision-making process, which is always, I've come to learn, and I learn every day, is more explicit in Israel. In Sweden, the collective decision-making, the consensus model, is a lot more implicit, meaning you can sit in a room and you can talk, and then at the end of a difficult discussion about the topic, the Swedes will say, okay, but yes, this is good. And the Israelis will say, what was the decision? Because it needs to be, I mean, culturally, it's more explicit and directly in Israel. And those are some of the learnings we've done and actually learned together from each other.
Yeah,
but
so
I think there are great potentials for Israeli and Swedish collaboration. That's my takeaway.
Yeah, thank you very much. And we could have gone on and on because there's so much more to discuss. And we do hope that this is only the beginning, and that the additional conversations and collaborations will follow. So I'm thanking for me, and I'm handing back to Maria to sum it all up. Thank you all.
Well, thank you. And I think that was really nice last words from Gisli. And also, I think it's a good sign that we've already passed the time. We're past 10 o'clock, so I will be very brief. So just thank you, everyone. I mean, Jeanette, you've done an excellent job here in moderating today's session. All speakers, a lot of interesting and useful information, a great panel that gave really a flavor of what this is about. So I think, as Jeanette said, this is definitely the beginning. We would be happy to talk to all of you or to get your comments. How can we follow up? Because there is really a potential here. Both the concept of bioconvergence, as someone said, is not that well known among everyone, of course, but definitely worth understanding more about. And also there's the potential for partnership between our countries and our actors within the whole ecosystem of the life science sector. So I hope to see you again in Sweden or in Israel or online, many ways nowadays. And with that, thank you very much for being here with us today.
Thank you.